Tijion, it's a real honor. I think, like a lot of people, we thought you'd be way too busy for us. But super honored that you've joined us tonight, and really good to meet you again. I did meet you once at a conference. I'm sure you didn't meet me.
I remember. No, I remember, Tim. And I remember because I always remember moments where they're nice moments and you didn't need to. I think I was telling him right in there that, I don't like conferences because they've changed for me now. I used to be able to just walk in and it was fine, but now you kind of get cornered. And you just came up to me and you just went, "Oh, I like really what you're doing with that help group. It's, it's really good." And I was like, "Oh, that was really nice." And I remember actually then in the bar afterwards, I just saw how your calm temperament is, and I have to applaud you on that, because I remember there was a really obnoxious guy at the bar and he was just giving you flack. He was obviously drunk. I don't even think he was a doctor. And you were just so calm. And I thought, wow, this was me. I would be tempted to hit this guy right now. But you kind of were like, yeah, I think you need to leave now, and you just dealt with it quite nicely.
Oh, that's really interesting. You remember? I honestly thought you'd be too busy, but I was thinking about that moment as well, and kind of one of the things that I think is most noticeable about you is that approachability. And I don't know how you normally feel at conferences, but that's the thing that you do. The first time I saw you on one of your YouTube videos, I had this sense of like, where do you get that charisma from? I wish I could like buy a book on that. But anyway, there's definitely a humble component to it, as well as all the success and all that, which I would applaud you for as well, which I think is brilliant. But I'm super intrigued to find out. Sorry, Miranda just knocked something over in the background. I'm so grateful for this because there's loads of questions about where you've come from and how you've achieved what you've achieved. I thought it'd be a fantastic thing for this is mainly for people in the aesthetic industry to find out a little bit more about what it takes to basically, I'm pretty sure you're probably the most famous cosmetic doctor in the UK, and how the hell.
No pressure there.
Yeah. I did actually try and do some Googling. I mean, maybe I need to, but yeah, certainly the one that comes to mind, I think, for most of us. So that's an incredible achievement. You qualified a year before me at medical school. So 2005. No way. Yeah.
At the same medical school.
Same medical. No, you were at Leicester. I was at Warwick. I was there.
We got to go, I think, Warwick a couple of times. It's nice there. It's nice.
Yeah, nice leafy green place.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're now the the Body Fixers resident doctor for Body Fixers. I noticed you've also started doing some property development on the side, which I was impressed. Well, so you're not someone who shies away from keeping yourself busy. Yeah. And you've got a 17-month as well, old, which probably makes the rest of it pale into.
Yeah, he's the thing that keeps me the most busy, definitely, in terms of everything else.
And you can't negotiate with a 17-month-old either. So unlike all the other,
it's his way. And as you were just saying before we went on air, they melt you. Like he always says, "Mama," but if I'm around and he wants me to do something, like because he knows he doesn't say "Dada" as much. And then he says it, he reserves it for that time. He knows he's going to crack me because of that. Because I'm like, oh, he's saying daddy, he wants me, so I've got to do it. It doesn't even matter if I shouldn't do it. I'm going to do it because, he's saying my name. This is great. So
he's training you. That's the thing. They do training.
He's a master negotiator already.
Will you take us, just for our audience, back almost from the beginning and to when did the aesthetics idea start? When was your first thought of doing it?
So at medical school, there was a group of us once we had graduated, and we were all kind of to be the future surgeons. In my group, there was a couple of that were on orthopedic run-throughs. I was doing plastics at the time as well. We had general surgery, and they got exposed to injecting actually before me. So there was a group of about 6 of us, and they had started their kind of small injectable practices. And I was fascinated by it, but I just didn't really get into it. I was probably too busy with so many other stuff at the time. And then it was only then when in my rotation that I rotated to Bradford, that I was there. And there was a couple of really, really, really guys that probably maybe you might know, like Mr. Wu and Mr. Rhodes and Mr. Watt. These guys took me really under their wing, and in terms of things, I thought I was going to go into plastics, that was it, but I was more fascinated by their private practices in terms of what they did there in terms of injectables. And I felt when I was then going after work and injecting there that actually I had more autonomy than when I was in the hospital. You know, probably the same for you because we graduated a similar year. There is always a lot of stresses on the NHS, but particularly at that time, you know, particularly for surgical trainees, you weren't cutting. You know, you were an honorary scribe, so you were literally on the ward doing bits, and you know, you're getting up to registrar level. You should have done a certain number of procedures for each bit, and you felt frustrated, and you knew it was balancing. You knew it was for the greater good. You have to provide service provision, but at the same time, you don't want to be a consultant and not done half the cases you should do. So I became quite more disillusioned with that, and then more in love with the injectables, because outside of that, it was different. You control time, you managed your patients the way you wanted to, you were able to develop, and you got to use your hands, you know, and I got better and I got better at that. And then I remember specifically being in theatre one day with one of my bosses, and it got to the point that I was like, I think I want to go and do this properly. But at that time as well, I hadn't known many people anyway close to me that had and had done it as a full career, if that makes sense. It was people I knew they did bits of it and something else. And I wasn't sure if that was a possibility. And I remember speaking to my boss and saying to him, look, I'm thinking of doing this. This is something I should do. And he said, well, remember, if it doesn't work out, you can always come back. And it sounds so simple, but I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You know, I think you think sometimes with definite decisions, that's just it. You're on that path and that's it. And I thought, I don't want to throw away what this is now and that's it. The conversation didn't go that way with my dad. So when I kind of got home and I kind of spoke to my dad is a really stoic, traditional Nigerian man. And in that, you know, they gave up a lot to be here. You know, they came there here in their 20s. They put my sister and I through school. You know, my dad had to retrain as an accountant, was an accountant anyway, but his qualifications weren't recognized. So they made a lot of sacrifices from working in tiling factories and everything to get us there. So my dad almost saw this as, he didn't understand what aesthetics was. He didn't really know. All he knew was all of a sudden I'm walking away from an NHS job, which is, you know, stable, secure, and, you know, no parent really sometimes wants to hear that at that stage. So we had to have a negotiation, you know, and that's how most things goes with my dad. I think I got those skills from him. And we kind of came to an agreement that I had to do something that combined with what I wanted to do. So I knew if I continued in passes, that was never going to happen, because I was like, I'm not in love with that. And that's a long time, you know. I still had to do my fellowship and then continue in that way. I was like, that's not going to happen. And then it was only my flatmate at the time introduced me to a guy who was a GP, but was doing injectables. And I never had considered GP before. I never had at that point. For whatever reason, I don't know why. But he kind of, when I started speaking to him, I started seeing how you could develop a portfolio career. And I really liked that, you know, you could be working in practice, you could have this, and you could explore other avenues. You almost picked and put together things that you liked. So kind of presented that back to my dad, and he was like, okay. And I didn't think I would get it. I applied for it and I just thought, well, it's not going to happen, and I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. But I got in. And so I did that, and I did love it. And I started to really like it. And I saw the contrast between that and surgery, where communication skills are so key. I remember my first day arriving in general practice, and I was reading, because I'm so used to being grilled in x-ray meetings. I thought, I'm going to walk in, and and everybody actually was just talking to each other, and everybody was nice. And I was like, this is such a difference from what I'm used to, being in that environment. So it was good and enlightening. And then it got to a stage we finished, but I was doing my injectable practice at the time, and it grew so quick than I expected. I imagined what happened in that probably space of 3 years was going to be probably my 10-year plan. Mm-hmm. So it got to a point that by the time I had finished GP, the practice had grown so quickly and big that there wasn't almost even any time for GP. I did it a few bits. I did a bit locums when I finished, but it just never was going to happen.
Tell us about that before we move on. I'd love to hear about those 3 years. Like, what was were there certain pivotal moments, or was it kind of, did it all blur into one? Like, what was it that brought that together?
What, the 3 years in GP?
The 3 years while it got really busy. I'm kind of wondering what you were doing. Like, were you posting leaflets through doors, or was it?
Yeah, so I did a mixture. So I think the first thing for me was social media. you know, I think at that time, a lot of people really weren't using it at the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was posting before and after photos, posting them. And at that time, you know, I had like probably 10 followers or 11, you know, I had to like my photos to give them extra likes, you know, so it's trying, you know, that was at that stage, you know, call my mom, say, can you like a picture for me? It was really like that, but I didn't care. I just kept doing it, and I just kept putting content, and I kept putting all the images out there. And what started to happen was, in the area, then people started saying, oh, you see this guy, he's doing this work, you know, particularly lip work. And it was like word of mouth, but word of mouth on steroids. I always give that example because, you know, people speak, you know, about work and they go and tell their neighbor, but if they see on Instagram, they can tag their friend from Australia or anywhere else. So before I knew it, I had people from different districts, countries messaging and saying, where are you based? And so it went very, very quick. And at the beginning, all I had was a fold out bed that I had off Amazon that cost me like 20 quid. And they would put in a boot of my car. And after I would finish GP, I would literally go straight to this small space I had in the spa. And I would fold out that bed and I would be there with my little backpack, get my injectables out and do that. And it just started picking up to the point that I couldn't answer all the emails. So I'm trying to do a day job and I'm going in the evenings to do this as well. So someone had told me to get a virtual assistant because they said, look, you know, you need to buy time here. So if you can get a virtual assistant that can book you things, at least then when you're at work, you can concentrate on that and then you can go after work and do. So I found a company that did that, and it grew so quick that it was a company of 3 of them. So at first I had a few hours, then I had one of the whole staff for almost all the time. Then they needed 2. And then it got to the point where I was like, why don't you guys, rather than seeing the other guys, just become my admin? Because it makes sense. You know, the system. So they all 3 became then my admin team that just worked virtually and remotely. And it allowed me then to move on and grow and grow and do. And then I think a big point then, the catalyst point, I think, was when there was a particular celebrity that shared it at the time. I remember she had messaged because a local girl who I treated, she was friends with, so she loved the result. She then messaged me on Instagram. I remember telling my girlfriend at the time, oh God, this person, she's quite famous, you know, I'm a bit nervous. She was like, why? Why are you nervous? You do this all the time. And I was like, well, you know, in all honesty, you know, we know things can go wrong, but you know, with her, it's going wrong on a global scale. You know, it's not going wrong with your neighbor next door. So you might tell a couple of people down the road. This is a global scale, so it's higher risk. And she was like, look, just have confidence. You know, you can do this. And so I treated her. She was very happy at the time. But then that morning and night, I went to sleep and I woke up and I had about 300 emails. I had so many missed calls. I had a ridiculous number of comments and follows on my Instagram account. And I thought something bad had really happened. I just didn't know at the time. I was panicking. And then I looked and it was all different press people saying, oh, we've seen you've done this person's before and after. You know, she's posted it on her page. Could you tell us more information? All of this. So I'm going back to her because patient confidentiality. What can I say? What can I do? You know, she was really nice. She said, oh, just say this, that. And from there, I think that was a point where things definitely opened up and picked up and accelerated definitely even more in that point.
Yeah, wow. Well, hats off for you for getting, was it Facebook you were on first?
It was Instagram.
Instagram in 2005.
Yeah, mate. Instagram. I was using it like when no one really was using it. And that's why I keep saying, like, it just grew. It was a platform that no one really understood. It was just bits of pictures now and then, you know, yeah. And I was just using it to post before and after photos. That's it.
That is amazing. So that is a really good tip for people listening, is if you, because that was a risk as well, because you didn't know what that platform was going to do.
No.
You were just almost playing with it, and then this explosion happens.
Completely.
And yes, that's super interesting, because I was about to say, I remember in 2006 when I was starting my first job, telling my friend about YouTube, and he was like, "Have you heard of this website called YouTube?" You know.
Exactly. Everyone now knows.
That was really, so you're out there building a business on a platform no one's heard of, and it catapults you into the limelight, into the spotlight, which is that's really interesting. How those kind of but there must be something in you that does things other people aren't doing then, therefore, because most people take the safer route is to copy other people, because you know that works.
Yeah.
So you're doing things. that
I
don't
think,
work
yeah,
necessarily. And
yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think one of the things when I set out to do this, and I think you probably agree with this, at the beginning, when you're starting your brand, you're trying to discover what is that USP, what is you, what do you want to translate into a brand? And what I deliberately did was I said, I don't want to really look and become anyone else that's doing this right now. So I would on purpose look outside of the industry for inspiration. So I look at fashion, I would look at beauty, I would never look at aesthetics, and I would look at successful people in those realms and look at what they were doing and seeing how does that translate in what I'm doing? Is this something I would do? And I really always did that. And I thought, if I can do that and I can stay in that lane, I'm not going to look at what's around me and get confused, because there's so much temptation, as you say, like, especially at that point when you're still doing it, because still at that point is nothing like it is today. And I still had my struggles in the sense that once there was then the changing point of deciding to go full time, you know, which was a risk, because even though it had grown and busy, you always had this secure paycheck and career that was coming through, and you were going, right, now I have to depend on this being the be all and end all. And I remember that was the next jump, because when things had still picked up, it still wasn't a full-on business then, in a sense that I would be doing locals and things to make sure if the quieter weeks and everything made sense. And I was worried at a point, because I made a big choice early to be, in terms of my pricing, more premium. And I remember literally there was a week, 2 weeks where I didn't get a booking. And I had been so used to getting bookings because of the kind of gasoline that celebrity had put on things. And I was panicking because I was thinking, wow, I need to survive. Is this not going to work out? Maybe I had a good run already. This is the end of it. And I had to kind of go back to basics. And I went, right, okay, if I'm going to be premium, where is everyone premium? And in Newcastle, where I was at the time, there's an area called Darras Hall. And that was where the biggest houses were. So I thought, right, I wrote to my girlfriend and her little brother at the time, and we drove down to Darras Hall. And I got these cards, and I had spent about, I can't remember, about 100 quid on 50 of these cards, with these plated cards that had inscribed, you know, my logo on it, and it looked really nice, but a space to put a number. And I said, right, we're going to drive around, and the biggest 50 houses, we're going to post this in. And we went into each one. I got him to run up and post them in. And I thought, this better pay off, because that was a lot of money. And I remember waiting for about a week, 2 weeks, nothing happened. And I thought, oh my God, that is just a waste of money. Why did you do that to you? And then it was not until about 3 weeks after, one of the ladies that lived there kind of emailed a message, said, I've got one of your cards from my door. I've just arrived back in the country. You know, where are you based? I'll come and see you. And she then brought, once she had the treatments, friends from that area, and then it very much grew. And so by going straight to the target market, even how crude it was, I reached out and I got there, you know. And sometimes people are afraid to do that because it's putting yourself out there. But if you don't risk, you don't gain.
mm. So that's also a pattern, I think, people, because I was watching you demo. I don't know if you did the demo live, but you did a demo on this morning, and
Oh yeah,
putting myself in that situation, like that's pretty high stakes.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you've got to have some balls, basically.
yeah.
Like what
You do.
what is it? Because I sometimes think it's not necessarily that you need to be brave, but it's like you need to be more afraid of not doing it in some way. Like,
Yeah.
is there some? Well, tell us a little bit about what drives you to put yourself out into these situations where you could be rejected or fail. Or
Yeah, I think so. I've probably not talked about this much on anything kind of live. I talked about it on our podcast, which we had. When, unfortunately, the area where I grew up with was really rough. And when I was about 10 or 11, my best friend got murdered, and I saw it. And it always stuck with me. And sorry, just saw myself. It always stuck with me. And he was very much like me in the sense that he just wanted to take over the world. And ever since that day happened, I always thought, how can I ever sit on my laurels, like rest? Like if he was here, he would be going full throttle for everything. You know, it's a blessing. In that area where I grew up, it could have been me. It could have been so many other people, but it wasn't me. So I've got this opportunity. So how can I waste it? And I think add that to my parents, you know, they sacrificed so much to get me here. Why am I going to then just sit there, you know? And my dad, you know, I'm very grateful. He was very strict with me. But one thing I would say is that he always had that, me, my sisters and I, to build it into ourselves to strive for more. And it was so much at a young age that we then learned it by automatics. Like he would take us, you know, so when he finally had a car, he would, because the places where we were in council house states, and there wasn't, you know, really anything nice, but he would drive us to the nicer areas. And he would be like, look, you know, see that car, see that. And we would play this game, and my sister, oh, we want that house, we want that house. And he was like, you know, you can have all of those things, but you have to work hard, you know, you really have to work hard, you know. And he would remind us, you know, you've got cousins in Nigeria and Africa that will give for your opportunity here. Don't waste it. And that was always the message that went through. And even though sometimes we felt it was harsh and we missed out on certain things, we knew I knew out of retrospect, he was going for a certain goal for us because of what happened in the area, because of what happened to my friend. You know, he didn't want us to end up that way, which could have so easily happened. So I guess with the life lessons that happened there and how my dad was, it became an automated process for me. And now that's one thing I want to do for my son in the same way. You know, I want for him now, the opportunities that my dad has given me to put in a position to give him those opportunities and for him to be able to do the same for his son as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really powerful. So it's that you're probably one of my questions, I think you probably answered it unless there's another, but one of like the worst moments of your life has become a driving force in some ways. And then on top of that, you were given some direction by your dad, it's not just about energy, it's also about the direction you're going in. I think that's amazing. And it's something I don't think people probably do that as much. Because I was born in a different country and emigrated and have that kind of immigrant component of, I know what it's like in country, there's no welfare state, and I know how bad things can get. And there is that element of like, get away from that, build yourself something solid. And your dad was basically giving you that lesson in the UK, saying you can do better, you can go further. And you also had this horrible pain point. You wanted to get out of that neighborhood. And do something that justifies your friend, what your friend would have done had he not died. I think it's really interesting and powerful. What was I going to say? So so it's that element of, I'll just say it one more time because I think it's such a useful thing to understand, of not letting someone else sort of die in vain. It's almost like he hasn't died in vain because you've put more energy in.
I think you live each day. From that, I learn, and from different life lessons, you know, people have had bad things happen through the way. I've had a life where, like I said, I'm lucky in so many ways, but then it's been unfortunate in so many ways. I remember we were talking about our medical schools because you went to Warwick, I went to Leicester. I remember there's still one of the first talks, and they're talking about cancer. And, you know, it's one of those things you never think is going to be a part of your lifetime or anything. And I remember them saying, turn to the left, turn to the right. You know, 1 out of you is going to have cancer in your lifetime. And I was like, well, that's not going to be me. And then, you know, fast forward to modern day, and both my parents have got metastatic cancer. And I never saw that coming. And particularly then after with what happened with my friend, and then that's happening to both my main figures in my life, it really is really humbling. But at the same time, it really just showed me, man, you do not, tomorrow's not given, you know. And I think sometimes we put things off, we go, tomorrow. We just don't, tomorrow is not given. So the energy is almost like, right, if tomorrow in a morbid way is going to be gone, you know, then you know you've lived and done everything to the limit you can. And going back to this morning thing, exactly that, you know, I was like, well, if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So it might as well be me. And when you do that enough times as well, and then you get on the other side, you're like, oh, well, it was okay. As you probably thought, you know, you probably, when you've done it and you've had a big crowd and you're doing the talk, you think, oh my God, I feel sick. And you do it and you're like, oh, well, yeah, I survived. It was okay. And you then start to learn that, and then the stakes get bigger each time. And like you said, that one with the treating the full patients, I remember even now, probably people think, oh, you know, it's TJ, you find that easy. I did not sleep that night. I did not sleep. I literally was like, oh my God, my missus was like, go to sleep. I said, I have to inject these 4 patients live, you know, we know bleeding, bruising, whatever can go. And they want me to reveal it the same day in the morning. Like, this is too much. I was like, I'd asked them if I can inject 8. So at least if I can pick 4 that went well, then we could hide the other 4. and then I could just bring those. And they were like, no, it has to be those. So yeah, it was high stakes, but then high stake does bring big reward. And I think, you know, it was a huge feedback from that. And in myself, I learned I could do that. And so for the next time when it happens, then I'm more confident each time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting for people to hear, because I tell you what I believe people do, because I've done it myself, which is you look at the projection on social media, on TV,
Yeah.
and you think, oh, they've got everything easy, and that's why they're successful, and that's why I can't be. And actually, the truth is so often the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And it's the pain that drives people away from these situations and makes you braver, because you're in touch with what complete loss really is.
Yeah.
And that it's, I mean, it's a shame that you have to suffer in order to experience that, but it is kind of a power as well. Really interesting. And you're super engaged on our mindset group as well, and I can see why.
I love that. I love it. Honestly, I think it's a great thing you guys have done. I remember when it first began, I wasn't sure what it was about. I remember kind of dipping in and seeing bits, and I wasn't sure. And then as it's grown, I've just seen how fundamental it is. And actually, it's weird. It's a lot of the stuff I do to myself. I try and do a lot of self-reflection. I try and look at things, and when I hear you speaking, it's trying to figure out, why do I think a certain way? Why do I behave a certain way? I watch people and I try and figure out how they do that. And I think it's so important, because particularly in our job, it can be quite solitary, and it can be quite lonely. And as you said, what I try and do when I put this, because I know sometimes people put me on this kind of platform, I kind of hit him and I'm like, man, I was exactly where you were. Like, know that, you know, I've not had this abnormal superpower that has just been bestowed upon me and that's it. You know, I was feeling the same fears, the same worries, starting in the same bit with the fold out bench and not having a flash room or a flash clinic, all of those beginning things. And I think sometimes when you have newbies coming through, particularly now where the industry's so big, they want to be right there tomorrow, and they see your journey, but they only see that part. They don't see that journey before. So trying to remind them, look, I was where you were, and that took me 5 years to go there. Or, you know, this bit, I try and do it to help to reassure them that, okay, this is something you want to go on. It's not because things aren't happening for you. It's just time, you know, and learning more about yourself and your business in that time.
Absolutely. And we're so lucky that you can share that with us. I think it will definitely help a lot of people hearing that. So I think I've touched a lot of the stuff that I was going to ask you is actually going to float out anyway. But I was thinking, we're always in a battle. Like, life's always a battle. Like, it's never. And this is another thing that you might be put on a pedestal now, and people might think it's, you've got it all sorted. I'm sure you're in a battle right now as well, because everyone is. What's currently your biggest challenges, things you're trying to pull off?
I think when that happens, and I think you said it one time about something regards to me, when you put yourself above the parapet, your biggest challenge is then, one, staying there, okay? Because the platform changes. You know, if you stay static, then it doesn't. You get washed away, everything moves on. So you have to continually look at ways to diversify and be ahead. And my dad always said, you either be the first at it or the best at it. That's simple. There's no way in between. You're either the first at it or the best at it, or you're going to get washed to the side. So I always then try and think, and I'm always constantly looking at that landscape and doing that. The other part for me now in terms of battling is expanding myself. I always try and want to develop myself. And one of the things, and probably you did it the same as way, when you got to a point where you're almost saturating your hands, I cannot work this amount of time with my hands, you start realizing, damn, how much is so dependent on my hands? And God forbid something one day happens to him, or what is, everything you've built around you is on this. So then, as a, not just a medic, but as a business person, you have to step back and go, okay, I'm not going to go at this rate for the next 10 years. It's not possible. I don't want it. My wife will not let me do that. It's not going to happen. I can't be racing up and down the country. You have children. So you have to then start thinking, okay, what's the unconscious way of generating income and supporting your family and growing your business outside of yourself? So the challenges within the clinic became scale. And how does that maintain the brand when you scale, and delegating when you're so used to being doing everything yourself? And then outside of the clinic, it was like, right, how can I diversify this portfolio to inform things that I enjoy the same way I enjoy in clinic, but I can use it to then help grow and have security for my family. And, I always keep going about legacy. So, moving forward. So when my time's not here anymore, things keep moving forward.
So some of that for me, I've experienced is that it's actually quite hard to let go of stuff
Yeah.
that you like, but that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So I know, I think, I don't know if it was an article or a blog, but I read about you experiencing burnout when you were flying to Dubai and covering all these different places.
Yeah.
Tell us about how those moments kind of helped shape your next move.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you did research, man. I remember that one. So yeah, I was literally at that point up and down the country. Like, so people don't know, I've clinic in Newcastle, Dubai, and then also in London. And at that time, there was really no set pattern. It was just following the work. So I would split my week in half, and then every either quarter or third month, I was in Dubai. So there were some days I remember, and at the time, because I was so between each place, I sold my flat that I had in Newcastle. So I was just in hotels, and I would always stay at the Malmaison, whichever I was. And there was one day I woke up, I didn't even know what city I was in. I knew I was in a Malmaison room, but I had to actually look outside the window to know if I was in London or Newcastle, because I had just been going back and forth so much. And I think, again, this is the other bit that people don't see. So they see the glitz and the glam. They're like, he's on the TV, he's doing this. It's amazing. And no, you want your own home and your own space. Like in the beginning, it feels a bit great because you're in hotels, you're in nice rooms, you've got room service and that. But then you're living out of a suitcase, and then, you're not got your own space, you're not coming to your own home and not coming to your family. And I think Laura was a big part of that, my fiance. And when I had Roman, and then we knew Roman was coming, I knew I had to make a change. I was like, I didn't want to be a dad that wasn't there. I really wanted to be, like my dad in that way. So that was the challenge for me in terms of letting go and delegating. I was like, man, this ball that I've been running with constantly and not trying to drop it, I have to hand part of it over. And Matthew will tell you, he's probably watching this. At that point, Matthew, I just let him start seeing patients. He'd been with me and literally sat quietly for a year, 2 years. I was actually trying to make him quit. I wanted to try and push him to be like, right, I don't want to be here, So I wanted to see how long, he would actually do without injecting it. But he would turn up, he would watch, he would assist, and he would do. So I kind of was like, right, you're going to step up now. I need you to step up, and Newcastle, and we worked to that. And, it was hard at first because, I always wanted things my way and how it would be done that way. But with time, it worked, and it allowed me then to wean away from Newcastle to the point I'm there once a month. He's doing the rest. And it allowed me then to go into other avenues and also personally be more focused with my family here in London as well. So it was tough, very tough. And even now I still find it difficult. I don't think you ever perfect that, because there's that old saying that you think that no one's ever going to do a better job than you are of it. Mm-hmm. So you hold on. But I think with time and age, you also realize that if you don't give this to someone, it might not never get done because you're just never going to get the time to get to it. So you have to then balance those two and do it.
Yeah. And hidden in there is another thing I'm quite interested in, which is sometimes you ask for something, you really, really want it when you ask for it, but when you get it, you realize it was different to what you thought, and then you have to get out of it, but keeping the bits that you like.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're on that journey. Where would you like to be? I mean, this is quite a hard question, which I you may not understand it, or you may have a clear goal, but where would you like to be in kind of 10 years time? What's your ideal life look like? Are you based in one
Yeah.
place?
I always try and have that in my mind. You know, for what happened to me now, that was a plan in my head, you know, a while ago. These are things I'm a big, I do get quite spiritual, but I'm a big believer in visualization. I really do. You know, it freaked me out the other day because sometimes I forget things, and I was going through my phone and old photos, and the house that we're developing now in Surrey is exactly like a house I took a picture of way back when I started saying, I want this one day, you know, and it was so weird. I remember showing, so I said, look, it's the same, you know, and I remember taking that picture because I saw it in a magazine. I said, oh, I want that one there. Right? And I just kept it, and I had it. And I think having a visualization is so important because then it pushes you, and it shouldn't be something you should be scared of. And you shouldn't, I always say, the bigger it is, the better, because you can't fall too short if you aim high. If you aim low, then you'll aim low, you fall lower. If you aim high, you know, you can't fall too short from there. And for me, the next bit in my life is kind of two parallels. One is definitely from a dad bit. That is a big challenge for me because I look at how the situation was with my dad in the sense that we didn't have anything. So him teaching me the importance of having things and not to take things for granted and everything was good. And he instilled that. But now my son has everything. So in my head, I'm like, how do I get that into him? Because it's different. You know, we grew up in a council flat and, you know, and house, and we didn't have any of these things. He's growing up in a big house and he's got everything. So how do I get the drive into him to continue? Because you've probably seen it when sometimes with people that have all of that, then they just ease back because they think everything in life is given. So that's a real big challenge for me. And I really want to focus with my dad, God bless his soul, as long as he's here, in instilling that. That's one of my big focuses over the next 10 years, for him to have that grounding from initially. From a business point of view, it is for me to figure out a time when to step back, you know, because there has to be an off switch at some point, you know, and one big thing that I always try and listen to people who are successful, and there's these hairdressers in Newcastle that multimillionaires have done so well, and I treat him, and he said to me, you know what, TJ, you're going to do very well in life and stuff. And I said, oh, thank you. He said, but I'm going to give you one word of advice. I said, what? He says, learn when enough is enough. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you can keep going. You can keep going for the bigger car. You can keep going for the bigger house. You can keep going for the bigger bit, and you will never be satisfied. And he says, and he said to me, he's 55 now. He says, I'm 55. I was supposed to be retiring when I was 55. Now I'm working more than I did in my mid-20s because I'm having to sustain this life I created, because going. And I remember sitting back listening, going, yeah, he's so right. You have to get to a point where you realize enough, you know, and be content with that. Because if not, as we said, tomorrow's not given, and you realize then you've let a lot of life pass by. So a lot of the focus for me now starts to look at things outside of my hands that generate business and grow, and things that I enjoy that in time automate themselves and do. So they support my family, support my son, support our interests of what we want to do. So if, when the time comes and I need to step away and I realize this is that point, then there's not as much pressure on it, and it makes it an easier decision.
Yeah, really wise words. And it's a very hard thing to get right, but with the difference between success and fulfillment, we would think of it as, and you can be extremely successful and unfulfilled, and that's the worst kind of failure. So this is a great time for you, but also it's good. Anyone should ask themselves that question as soon as possible, because otherwise you do find yourself in a successful somewhere where you don't actually want to be there anymore. Completely. So really good advice with that. I know we're not teaching everyone how to accelerate as fast with that, but that's more important than anything else, I would say, is to ask yourself those important questions. Or what does it take you to be fulfilled? Really good questions. And what you said about your son and that connection with the pain that you had, and him not having that. We've had so many of those similar discussions, because it's really different. It's almost like you're a victim of your own success.
Completely. And you see it time and time again. You know, you see people that have attained a certain level of success in society, and then you see the next generation, and so many times they're lost because they've grown up in this surreal environment that is not natural to most, and almost not all the time, you know, there's a difference of rule, but then you see them not have that same appetite because they're just used to it being given, and what their baseline of what is normal is what most people's baseline is what is top. So then where does your drive come from? You know, and that's really, honestly, it's something that constantly in my mind plays over, because I don't, you know, I want him to go to all the good schools, I want him to have all the opportunities I didn't have, but at the same time I don't want that then to become, okay, this is just a normal environment and this is all given.
You're going to have to find some really big neighborhoods to
Yeah, honestly, I literally said it. My missus was like, "Oh no, you can't," because obviously Edmonton is a bit. If anyone knows Edmonton, yeah, it's a rough area. I was like, "I'm driving him down there. I'm gonna once a month drive him down there." She was like, "Oh no, you're not." You know, she goes, "I don't want you." I said, "I am. I want him to see where his dad grew up. I want him to see those bits. Obviously, keep him safe, but I want him to have that contrast to know, look, this isn't just given." And I think I'm probably going to be the strict one. You know, it's funny, you say you become your father in so many ways sometimes. I think I can see why he was like that, because he saw the world how it is, and the different pathways you can take through it. And he was so intense up until the point I graduated. He became a different man. You know, through all the time I thought he hated me, I was adopted, I didn't know what was going on. You know, he was just like so strict. And when I graduated, that was the first time my dad hugged me. Literally, I looked at my mom and I was like, is he okay? Like, something I need to know. And she was like, no, your dad's just like happy now. His job is done. Wow. And after that, he spoke with man to man speak. Before that, there was nothing. He just was a stoic guy, nothing. Shook my hand when I left the uni. You know, most families were hugging each other. He shook my hand like it was a military expedition or something, and, you know, never showed emotion like that. So it shows the pressures that it is for a father and a child to kind of push forward.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful as well. I can see he's been a major influence, and like with everything, you can take the best bits and give them, pass them on. So I'm just trying to think about some of the more practical things. Miranda loves to make things practical for our audience as well. I'm sure she is.
You have to have the fine balance. That's it. My mission is the same.
I want to ask you one last thing linked to this idea of legacy, which comes back, which is before we hand over to more practical stuff, which is what do you want people to say about you at your funeral?
I want, and I've thought about that. I want people to be like, he really did do his best in everything he had to do. You know, he didn't waste a minute. He wanted to bring out the best in himself and everybody around him. And I think if that's something I can leave with my son as a legacy for him to go on forward and doing, you know, I know the family name is in good hands in that way.
Wonderful. I'm just going to try and draw what I'm picking up from you, which is both people often talk about mindset being an abundance mindset, but I think you have a scarcity mindset for the most precious thing, which is life itself. Like the sense of like, you've got to make the most of that. Yeah. That is scarce. Yeah. But then you're obviously very optimistic, because otherwise you wouldn't strive so hard if you didn't think it was possible. Yeah. That mindset, I'll probably think about this for the next few days, but often you can pull out what the driving force is. That there's something there around appreciation for life itself, and taking the opportunity, and fear of not making the most of it, which I really resonate with as well. And then also a sense of optimism that it's possible. Yeah.
Anything is possible. It is. It so is. I truly believe that, because it's funny. I look back now and I go, did I think before I went into med school that I was going to be on front cover of Time magazine, and, you know, I was going to no, you know, if someone came up to you and told you that, and told you, Tim, where you are, you nah, whatever, but you're here. And that's here because of, you know, your belief and hard work. And that's why I always say, look, just believe. Like, you need to really, because when you're on your journey, as you probably know, there'll be so many people that will doubt you along that way. And you need that voice in your head to be unshakable through that time, because you can really, that type of energy can come in. And I always just try and push it away, and listen to that voice and really focus on that. but then also it makes it easier with time, because then you see what's happened when doing that, and then you reinforce that actually, no, I can. And each time then it gets a bit easier.
Yeah, really good.
Do you know, I almost don't want to sully this totally beautiful experience by coming
No,
in
at all, don't worry at all.
practical questions. But I would love to know, Tijion, tell us about.
Is this Philip Schofield?
Oh no, yeah, I will ask you. Tell us about those, because you say that you have to have unshakable belief, but belief can't just be magicked up.
No.
You've obviously developed that over decades.
Yeah.
So tell us about that moment, because you've had some brutal people coming at you, as you know, some quite, making the press and things like that.
Yeah.
Just, you don't have to go into the detail, because I don't want to honestly ruin this beautiful lesson that you guys are creating. And can I just say as well, there's so many, Tim's being very quiet, but there are so many parallels with your guys.
I suspected that there would be. Yeah, I definitely suspected that there would be, because you always, and that's why when you're doing your bits and you think, I do look a lot of what he's saying, because I relate to a lot of things he says and puts in his posts.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But so tell us, when they're coming at you and people are like saying things about your son on social media, and or they're, just like you've had industry haters, you've had critics, like when that comes, because you're a human being, it must pierce you a bit, and then how do you get rid?
I think the first things in my life that I had that really hurt me in that way was racism. I remember as a medical student being on the ward distinctly with my ward partner, and we were doing baby exams, and we had to go and examine the babies, and they let my ward partner, who was English, examine the baby, and I went to examine the baby, and the parents were, no, don't touch my child. And at first I was so naive to it, because I hadn't experienced it in that environment. I just thought, oh, the baby's tired or something like that. And then I overheard her saying to us, I don't want him touching my child. And, and then the guy was muffling about, oh, people like him. And it only really then set in later on that day. And I remember just sitting in the canteen and it dawning on me, and I was with my ward partner, and she was like, don't worry about it. And it was a predominantly white area. So then I started picking up on things in that canteen. So people staring at me and bits in there. And I was the only black doctor there. And I remember going to my room and I cried, and I'm not afraid to say that. And I thought, like, I don't want to be here. And I remember calling my mum, and I was like, Mum, I don't want to be here. And I explained what happened. I said, I don't want to be here. And I was on that verge. And I actually, I wanted to quit that day. I just thought, how can it be that, I can be, study this hard, I can be a doctor, and they don't want me to touch them because of the color of my skin? Like, that's just, I just, they can't accept that, then how am I ever going to push forward? And I remember my mom really saying some good choice words to me at that time. And she was just like, look, in life, people are never going to love you all the time. They're not. And you have to be okay with that. Also, when you came into this earth, I gave birth to you, but it's you who decides to announce to the world when you have arrived. And that day will come. But you keep going until that day comes. And she was like, this is not your day to quit. And so, I kind of gathered myself together, and I always play those words that she came in. I always say it's having parents like that, and then having a foundation of friends around like that then push you to then go even more. And I think then what happened was then when it naturally started happening in different other ways. So like you say, in the industry or things like that, what it made me realize, even with racism and all these other things, were these people that projected these things to you aren't happy, and they aren't true as well. It's only true if you allow it to become, if you allow the feeling of it to become into you, then it becomes true, but if you move on and you continue, it's not, it just becomes them in their unhappy world, trying to suck you into that area. And one I really remember, I won't say his name, but he's a really well-known KOL. And I realized that was actually one of the things that I actually thank him for it indirectly, because it actually made me realize to focus on those lessons that my mum had taught me was we were in Monaco. Yeah, it was in Monaco. And I got introduced by one of the reps, and they said, "Oh, this is Dr. Esho, who's up and coming." And he looked at me, and he looked me up and down, and he was like, "Oh, yes, you know, I've heard of you on social media, but I don't follow you, but I've heard of you." And I thought, why is he saying that first? I didn't understand. He was making a point. I don't follow you, but I know of you. And then he was like, what you should be, you should really be yourself. You don't try to be someone else, just be yourself. And I thought, we've never met, so how do you know who is me and who you are? And later on in that conversation, he continued. He then turned around to me and said, "Oh, let me take you under my wing. You can be like me. If you follow what I say." And I was like, man, you're not actually making me realize I used to look up to this person in terms of what they'd achieved. But what it made me realize is going back to what you said, Tim, there about success and unfulfillment, that you can be successful, but you can be very unfulfilled. And it reinforced to me, I don't want to be that way. I want to be fulfilled and successful. I want to be fulfilled above success, and so even later on in that day where that guy kind of then got drunk, and you could see, I really reflected, and I remember calling my missus and "I love you," and we were speaking, and I was just really grateful for the things I had in my life, because I thought, you know what, man, I'm looking at these people thinking, sometimes you allow it to happen, that they've got all this, it's amazing, I need to go there, when actually they probably would give anything to switch through where you are. And that's probably why they're projecting that on you, that's where it's coming from. And the more then you learn about that, that's the place I go to. So when I hear that, that's the place I go to. If I hear the stuff, rather than getting upset about it, I'll go out with my son and my missus somewhere. If I hear the stuff, I will call my mates and we'll catch up, and I will reinforce how lucky I am and how untrue that is, if that makes sense.
That makes brilliant sense.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And talking about authenticity, how do you be brave and be your authentic self on social media? Because I don't know whether you picked up on this, but many of my audience worry about, they're going to get their NMC pin taken away because they did something fun on social media, or they were unprofessional, and they don't know where the line is. And I understand that. You are, like pretty chilled, and you're super authentic. How do you navigate that line?
I think because I realized very quickly, you're judged if you do and you're judged if you don't. Like there's no winning situation. You don't do something, you're judged for not trying, or underachieving, or what have you. You put yourself out there, you're judged for being a show off or Gloria. You can't. So when I realized that very quickly, that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, I said, just do what you want. Just do what you want. And if you focus on that, then at least you're happy to be judged for it. I would rather not. I would be, the thing that would make me upset was that I didn't do something because I was worried about what someone else thought, and then I became judged for that. That would make me more upset. Because,
double.
Man, I don't do that. This is not me. Why am I doing that? But if I do something and he judged me, and he go, give a good example. It's like I say, I if I see opportunities and I calculate it, I go for it, and it will either pay off and it won't. And Deciem, when I kind of first blew up, Deciem, a big beauty company, Brandon, who's passed away now, headhunting me out of nowhere from social media, said, I want to collaborate with you. We've never worked with a doctor. We want to produce this product, lips, you focus on lips, we're going to call it Esho. That's every doctor's dream there, one of the biggest beauty companies coming through, you're having dreams about your things on the shelves and everything. They're calling your mums and have made it, in that way. And literally, I didn't know it would turn the way it was, because then obviously Brandon had his bipolar episode, and then, canceled all the lines, and it was all very public. So we're above the parapet, as I said before you're doing things small, no one else really sees. You do that, the world sees. And, before I know it, there was articles, Esho line dropped this thing. And it hurt, don't get me wrong, but I was like, no, I did it the way and if time went back, I would do it again. And I've learned from it. And so now it's actually put me in a position to do things on my own. So I think do you, and that's the kind of simple bit behind it, and then they won't care.
And it sounds like you've got 3 wins from a situation like that. The first is that you did what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the second is that you learned from the negative outcome. And the third is that you are, from my perspective, part of the reason, so I've just been watching all the comments, everyone's just like, oh my God, these, like both of you guys, like so authentic, so beautiful. And that is in part because you share your stories. Like you brought up the Deciem, like I did read that article. And interestingly, I would just say it's the first time I heard that when I was Googling you. So anyway, but I did read that article but I wasn't going to bring it up and you brought it up. And so that's your power.
Yeah.
That's you could do what you want with that now. That's your, like, you decide how that story goes. And that's so beautiful. 3 wins from something so horrible.
Yeah. I think if you're transparent like that, that's what I say. I think I'm always like that. And I think if you get comfortable in your own transparency, then you really know what is your own truth. And so then again, coming back to when people say stuff, I'm like, I'm me. Like, you can come and find me and speak to me. There's nothing you can't ask me, as I said when they said it, and I won't tell you. So I've got nothing to hide. So that stuff, if someone's saying it and I'm saying it's untrue, it's definitely not true, because I would have told you. Like, I don't find shame in anything. If I failed at something, it's a learning game. You know, no one is going to go through life 100% perfection and going through, and actually knowing what failure feels like and or coming from an area underprivileged is often what drives you even more.
That's so amazing that you don't feel shame. There's a whole movement. I love Brene Brown. She's an amazing academic in America, and she talks a lot about shame. And I think it can be very, very debilitating. That's it.
It's a lot of the Stoic. You've said your dad was quite stoical. It's part of the Stoic philosophy, which is to kind of free yourself from shame.
Really?
And I've heard of people practicing being used to it by going and doing weird things in shops, like wearing crazy hats or lying on the floor of McDonald's, just almost.
And Sarah Blakely, the youngest self-made female billionaire, who runs Spanx, or who invented Spanx, she regularly tries to embarrass herself in front of in like on social media or whatever, just to desensitize them.
Yeah, but I love this idea of getting comfortable with your transparency. It's you know, we're all kind of we're all the same underneath, but being comfortable revealing that actually gives you the power, which is you have to discover that by being vulnerable first.
Yeah, I think so. I think that life events and that do strip that away, and you get in, like I say, that process of self-reflection so many times in yourself that you actually do it openly, automatically. So even me speaking about it then, you know, I'll reflect on something later with regards to that time again, you know, and that's the only way you can just try and improve on yourself and better yourself. I think just doing that each time is always the best way.
Amazing. So can I won't, I don't think we should talk tactics. Can I just ask a question that kind of is a halfway house, which is if for people watching now who are inspired by this and they're feeling like a little bit brave, they're thinking, oh my God, if he can do it, I can do it. He seems like a really lovely, normal guy. He can do it, I can do it. What one piece of advice would you give them if you could never give one more piece of advice ever? What would your final piece of advice be to aesthetic practitioners?
I know it sounds a bit morbid, but I will always say that if you didn't, that's done up there. I think that one's finished up live. I would say that if you were to die tomorrow, would it matter? And the reason when I say that is you're always fearful about the consequences of that going to happen or the failing in that particular thing. But if you weren't here tomorrow, would it matter? And if the answer is always no, just do it. Because we paralyze ourselves thinking of that failure. And actually, there's so much to be gained from the failure itself or the success. And you never are going to know unless you put yourself in that position. And I think if they're going to hear something from me and see, well, I know that I am them, you know, was them, am them, you know, still am. You know, I still remember to this day my first TV like injecting, and I remember throwing up outside in the toilet. Like, I remember going, yes to the opportunity, never done anything before, thinking just like these guys with their decisions, oh my God, what am I going to do? Being, you know, the negative thing coming in, getting to that point, like, my friend, if he was here, he would be doing this. So, you know, you're here, take this opportunity. And, you know, being physically sick, I remember being sick in the toilet to calm down and then come into the room and do it. And it was fine. And, you know, and the DCM, yeah, it felt, but I moved on into a different place and it's fine. So, you know, it's not going to be the end of the world. You know, really have that braveness to just go forward. It's not the end of the world.
Unless you let it become.
Unless you let it be.
In.
Yeah, unless you let it be. It so isn't. It so isn't. You stand to learn so much.
Let me ask one tactical question before we tie up, because I could keep asking questions all night. But I know people want to hear this kind of thing, which is so there's a parallel universe. Suddenly you lose your Twitter account, you lose your fame, you lose all your money. You're in a 3-bedroom semi. You're a GP, but you want to get it back.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you do?
Oh, start back at the beginning. Start back at the beginning. You know, I think if all of that happened, to get to where you are, you have to build the same blocks again. You have to start back at the beginning. And I think if you go back, that's a message to the people that are starting up and they want to be Tim, you know, whoever, me or whatever, and they just want to jump from there to there. It's not going to happen. And if you're not willing to go back to the beginning, then you actually don't really want it in the first place. You don't. You know, it's like you said, if it was really that bad. Like, if it's a funny thing is, the other answer I probably would say to that was, if as long as I got my son, my family, my friend, I'd be okay. I'd actually be okay. And that's because I don't, it's great, the success, don't get me wrong, but my fulfillment doesn't fully come from that. It is a part to it. But a lot of my fulfillment comes from the experience I've had in life and my personal side of my life. You know, that would be a more devastating thing to me, you know, in that way. I always say that in our profession, if no one could know me and I would have the same level of success, I'll take that tomorrow. I'll take that tomorrow. You know, it's just because it comes hand in hand, unfortunately, you know, and then unfortunately you get the negativity and the different things you say. So if tomorrow someone said, oh, you could achieve the same level of success, but no one would know you, which one you pick? I'll say I'll take the one no one will know me.
Wow.
Amazing. Really can't thank you enough for this.
Been quite blown away by this.
Would love to drag it on for another hour, but I'm sure you've got other things to do. But I really appreciate your time. I'm sure there are going to be tons of comments on, and thank you everyone for watching. Tijion Esho, it's been a really fantastic interview.
Thank you for having me, guys, and keep doing a fantastic job. Honestly, you are. And you know, you guys probably suffer a lot of the same things that I do, and it's empowering to see you keep pushing forward, because it reflects on that. You know, that's doing the right thing.
Yeah, well, I will definitely, because you're right, we do, and but I appreciate your words will resonate for a lot longer than this conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Tijion.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.